How's the royal family? I pray that everyone is doing well. Well, my royal family, I am back again on the Kings series. Anyone that is new to my channel, I had an old channel that was hacked. And in that old channel, I had started the Kings series. And I had started it in the month of June. And the reason why I started it in the month of June, I noticed that the disrespect towards our kings is heightened due to Father's Day. So I wanted to basically show some love and respect towards our kings because they're disrespected daily. And I had really enjoyed the direction that the King series was going. So I said, well, I will always keep doing the Kings series. So it'll be Sunday coming up pretty soon in a few hours. And some people like to listen to some, on their days off of work or not going to school, to long videos. And we get a tendency, me and a lot of other people on YouTube, keeping up with our current events and all of the disrespect and the destruction in the black community. And we can't lose sight of who we truly is and where we truly come from. So I said, you know what? I was trying to think what video that I'm going to put up today. And I said, well, let me continue on with the King series. So since I already begun doing the King series, I said, well, let me do a video for the weekend, particularly for Sunday, because I don't like doing long videos, but sometimes it's necessary to do long videos to truly understand who we are. So this video is dedicated to the kings. I also have begun a series about black nobility as well, and I'm going to be doing more videos on that. So I have two series that I'm doing. One that's dedicated to the kings, and the other one is black nobility, to fully understand that at one time we reigned and ruled the entire earth. So with that said, my royal family, let's roll with it because it's a long video. So just kick back and listen to it. And thank you for your support as always, my royal family.
Fundamental to the development of the black man. I'm Adrian Branch at the National Historic Site, the Frederick Douglass House in Washington, D.C. Douglass was known for his tireless efforts in the pursuit of liberty and justice. On this journey, we'll uncover information relative to the black man and lay down evidence of how his legacy was stolen. We'll also reveal how the black man can return to his glorious state. Why is it necessary to take this journey? Well, for starters, the educational, political, economic, and social systems of the Western world have succeeded in promoting a distorted image of the black man. But this is nothing new. This program is based on the book, Return to Glory, The Powerful Stirring of the Black Man, and this account is written by two authors, business consultant and professional counselor Don Griffin, and former Washington Wizards chaplain and international speaker Dr. Joel Freeman. Let's begin the journey. During the 1700s, famous French historian Count Constantine de Volney viewed the Sphinx during a trip to Egypt. This was before its nose and lips were allegedly disfigured by the cannons of French soldiers during their invasion of Egypt. When de Volney saw this awesome structure, he later wrote,
on the ancient Egyptians were true Negroes of the same type as all native-born Africans.
Here's an eyewitness depiction of the Sphinx, sketched by Baron V. Denon prior to the disfigurement, regarded by some to be the handiwork of French soldiers. Other Egyptian statues were disfigured in precisely the same way. One can only speculate about the motives of such vandalism. The image of the black man had been distorted. let's go back in time and find out what it was like for the black man in his glorious state before his image was distorted. During the 1800s, Napoleon's army had recently opened up Egypt for European archaeologists and historians. American scholars would soon follow. As they studied and translated Egyptian documents and unearthed monuments, Black Africa, it was clear, was the mother of Western civilization. Egypt, located on the continent of Africa, is one of the earliest and greatest civilizations ever known. But what is the true racial identity of the Egyptians? Well, historian Gaston Maspero made this statement.
By the almost unanimous testimony of the ancient historians, the Egyptians belong to an African race which first settled in Ethiopia on the Middle Nile.
Human civilization started in Africa. There was an article in the July 29th, 2001 issue of U.S. News and World Report. In this issue, they stated that through DNA analysis, that scientifically it has been proven that civilization started in Africa.
One can make a strong argument that people of color, Hamites, are the originators of civilization, and certainly we have strong evidence from civilizations such as Egypt, the pyramids, and even the Sphinx. If you look at the face of the Sphinx, you don't see the face of a European. You see the face of a black man, the thick lips and the Afroid features, and we know we're still trying to fathom and demystify some of the great achievements of that great civilization.
Now that we know who the Egyptians were, let's travel back even further before human civilization began. For this we'll need to refer to the best source of information that represents all nationalities and serves as a rich repository for black presence in history. The Bible.
The Table of Nations from Genesis chapter 10. We can see that from Ham and Shem and Japheth. And we know that from Noah and Mrs. Noah, that these three sons came, and from these three sons came all the nations as we know it today.
The Bible makes it clear that a man by the name of Nimrod was the founder of Babel, or what we come to know later on as Babylon. And so from a biblical standpoint and from a historical standpoint, some of the oldest civilizations, certainly we can say that the Hamite, or the people of color, or black men, were the originators of those civilizations.
After the Tower of the Babel and men were spread, the genius and creativity that was in the black man, who was leading in the way of civilization, in terms of science, mathematics, and language, and writing, and those sort of things, went full-blown with him into Africa. And he, when he settled there, the Bible calls it several times, Africa in the scripture, the land of Ham, that when he got to Ethiopia, and then later Egypt, he reestablished civilization in those lands.
Although the Bible is rich in black history, scholars have used passages of scripture to support a myth that blacks are a cursed race.
That is the most oppressive, non-contextual heresy that's ever been presented in reference to the curse of Noah to Ham, they literally won't even read the Bible. When Noah was in his tent, and then Ham uncovered him, he didn't get up and say, "I curse Ham." He said, "I curse the Canaanites." And what happened with that was he marked them. And all the Canaanites had been an enemy to the people of God. But it wasn't a color thing.
It is my belief that the curse on Ham was fulfilled 3 to 4 generations, according to Exodus chapter 20 and verse 5. This curse was visited upon Canaan and only Canaan. The curse was not visited upon Ham, because then that would mean the entire black race would have been cursed, according to the biblical record.
We started out people of color, so it's impossible for the black race to be a curse, because that would mean the origin of the human race is a curse. And God looked at what he created and said it's
Now, let's take a look at the truth of what the Bible says concerning blacks. Words written by the prophet Isaiah during the height of the 25th dynasty.
Woe to the land shadowed with buzzing wings, which is beyond the rivers of Ethiopia, which sends ambassadors by the sea, even in vessels of reed on the waters. Go, swift messengers, to a people, terrible from their beginning onward, a nation powerful and treading down whose land the river divides.
Isaiah wrote this. It was right around 714 BC, during the 25th dynasty. This was a time in the 25th dynasty where you have Shabaka and Taharka, who, by the way, is a biblical character mentioned in Isaiah 37 and 2 Kings 19.
I like particularly where he talks about where the Lord says that the Cushite was tall, the black man was tall and smooth-skinned. That Hebrew word merut, that is translated smooth-skinned in several translations, really in its original means polished and furbished. And listen to this sounds good. It said polished to the point where all the impurities have been removed. It's like God was drawing attention to the black man's skin. Said, I polished you and made you pretty so that you could shine real good. And it's a way of saying that the black man was fearfully and wonderfully made.
From the Bible, we gain insight into the glorious state of the black man. During the first 2,000 years of recorded human history, our ancestors had one of the greatest and most developed civilizations on the planet. Their domination actually lasted longer than other civilizations.
the ancient Egyptian distinguishes himself, herself, by the remarkable things they have done, some of which we cannot easily repeat. The Japanese, for example, tried to build a pyramid. They had to be thrown out. They made an absolute mess over acres of territory. These people had done something very remarkable.
According to Nahum chapter 3 and verse 9, he says that the people from Ethiopia and Egypt had a power that was boundless, limitless, without limit. And that was written in 714 BC, right around the same time that Isaiah 18 was written. So what we're dealing with here is that we're dealing with a group of people, black people, from beyond the rivers of Ethiopia, that were basically presidents of the planet, if you will. People who were in world domination.
One biblical character named Taharka is mentioned in the Bible that came from that dynasty. And this brother was so bad that God said to the Israel king that he was supposed to help. All I got to do is just mention his name and your enemies will run. So that's how much of a terror Taharka was. And he came from this 25th dynasty.
Yes, his past was glorious, but in time, black civilization would not have the world dominance that it once enjoyed. History records all too vividly the tremendous fall of the black man. He occupied one of the highest pinnacles of human greatness, but unfortunately could not stay there. Let's now begin to explore the downfall of the black descendants.
Before the harvest, when the bud is perfect and sour grape is ripening in the flower, he will both cut off the sprigs with pruning hooks and take away and cut down the branches.
Isaiah 18 is a prophetic word concerning African Americans, black people, people of color, and it talks about how God will discipline us in the last days. It talks about before harvest. Jesus said harvest is the end of the world. Just before harvest, he said he's going to cut off the twigs of the tree. The tree represents our people.
We were essentially railroaded and stripped from our land, stolen into captivity, sold by our own brothers and sisters, the kings of the tribes in Africa. A dastardly deed was really done to the African. And as a result of being sold into captivity by his own brothers, being at the mercy of white slave owners and white slave traders, being divided and conquered, having our women sold from under us, having our children sold, crossing the Middle Passage, and sometimes so sick and so impoverished that we would throw ourselves overboard to find death there. When you think about the bottom of the ladder, we had hit rock bottom.
Our people, at the pinnacle of human achievement, experienced their last flicker of world dominance with the fall of the 25th dynasty. They were so great that they got beside themselves. When you think you don't need God anymore, trouble is coming. God permitted the evil of slavery of the black man. While slavery was never God's plan, he used it eventually to bring the black man back to himself.
You know, we talk about coming over on the slave ships. We talk about the struggle of that. We talk about all this. We even lift up whites or whoever brought us over and all that. But the thing that blacks need to hear is that millions died on that journey. Millions died from West Africa coming here. And so we're the sons and daughters of survivors.
Much like in the case of Joseph, when Joseph was sold into slavery by his brothers, went into Egypt, became the prime minister of Egypt, was used greatly by God to bring life and health, not only to Egypt, but to the world. I believe that God has the same redemptive plan for Africans, that he has literally taken what was meant for evil, and he has turned it as only God can. He has turned it to good. To understand a history that is not a history based in slavery, but a history based in royalty.
Human civilization started in Africa.
Some of the first architectural systems, some of the first engineering systems, some of the first governmental systems.
After visiting Egypt, white scholar Count Constantine Devolny wrote, "Just think, the race of black men today, our slave and object of our scorn, is the very race to which we owe our arts, sciences, and even the use of speech."
In order to justify the economic drive of the slave trade, there had to be the denigration of black people. And so people began to see these sculptures of people with clear Afroid features. It was just incontrovertible. The facts, the reality that black people had designed this civilization.
Ignore. Just refuse to publish any facts of African history that don't go along with our racial theories.
When black contribution to civilization is too obvious, let's find a way to attribute it to outside white.
So the fall of the black man was complete and had nothing to do with either the curse of Canaan or any outside influence. As we all know, haughtiness comes before a fall and pride before destruction. After visiting Egypt, white scholar Count Constantine Devolny wrote, "Just think, the race of black men today, our slave and object of our scorn, is the very race to which we owe our arts, sciences, and even the use of speech."
In order to justify the economic drive of the slave trade, there had to be the denigration of black people. Black people needed to be viewed as 3/5 of human beings, if you will. Viewed as animals, viewed as tools to build the dreams of the Europeans. And so people began to see these sculptures of people with clear Afroid features, the nose, the lips, the angle of the face, the profile, and it was just incontrovertible. The facts, the reality that black people had designed this civilization.
One member of the school of anthropology called the study of Egypt niggerology. I have a book in my library called Personalities of Antiquity, where the King Pianki, which was you could argue, started the 25th dynasty of Egypt, was called the most famous of the nigger kings. And there were arguments being presented in the public domain. There was a magazine called Fraser's Magazine in 1849, where a Thomas Carlyle was explaining how the black man should fit into society, and said he should be a step above the domesticated animals, and that the black man, if we were to emancipate him, would be robbed of his rightful leader, which would be the white man. It would be a crime against him.
So on one hand, you have the slave trade. On the other hand, we have the tremendous civilization that black people had created.
There was a definite crisis of the conscience, because there were white brothers really intensely fighting this thing called slavery, and they were pushing for the liberation of the black man, condemning the trade itself, and freeing slaves in America, and they were torn. And so you can see where the impetus and the need to formulate rationalizations for this developed.
What to do? What are the anthropologists and archaeologists going to do in dealing with this information? And that is what I believe, what sponsored, maybe consciously in some cases, unconsciously in other cases, what we could call the cover-up. The cover-up of the accomplishments of black people. Chancellor Williams wrote a book called The Destruction of Black Civilization. And in this book, he outlines 7 points as to why he feels that there was a cover-up.
Ignore. Just refuse to publish any facts of African history that don't go along with our racial theories.
We need to create a religious and a scientific doctrine so that African slavery won't appear that bad after all.
What we need to do is flood the world with new African histories that contain our European perspectives only.
Start renaming people and places. Replace African names with Arabic and European names. This will disguise their true black identity.
Let's change the criteria for defining race. For example, 1 drop of Negro blood in America makes you a Negro, no matter how light the skin.
Yes, when reporting ancient African history, reverse the standard. No matter how dark the skin, woolly the hair, or thick the lips, you don't have to be a Negro.
When black contribution to civilization is too obvious, let's find a way to attribute it to outside white influences.
When all the ancient historians contradict your theory, we'll just discredit them.
Chancellor Williams was a scholar, and we feel that his observations have a lot of merit to them. But there are his personal observations. Talk about the rewriting of history. We have to set that in the context that we're talking about during the 1800s is when this started. We're not really talking about contemporary scholars primarily when dealing with this subject. You could not go from Egypt being a Negro civilization to being a white civilization without rewriting some things.
All the high school courses I took and the history course at the University of Maryland, and African American history was omitted. And after I read a book on African American history, I thought, whoa, I've been shortchanged. All of us have. I didn't know that 5,000 African Americans fought in the American Revolution for the freedoms that they didn't even enjoy at the time. I needed to learn more. My textbooks did not give me the education in this area. And the many people I talked to, the same thing happens. There's a real lack of knowledge of Black America.
But what effect did this cover-up and exclusion of information have on the black male?
I began to interview African-American men. I wanted men, especially over the ages of 35, because I wanted some men with some perspective. So as I began to talk with men, I began to see the survivor guilt of middle-class blacks, if you will. The issues of trying to assimilate into white America, trying to control the rage, having to work 2, 3, 4 times harder for an African-American male, sometimes 8, 9, 10 times harder for an African-American female to be just accepted as average. And I began to see that it was not so much looking for forgiveness for the whole issue of slavery, but also just to have these issues in terms of the economic and social issues and the justice issues addressed in a manner that would be allowing everyone to play at the same level.
Our status as African American men is still one of trying to find our true identity. I think for the most part, many of us are still confused about who we are. As a result of that, some of our younger children are now finding themselves in a hip-hop generation, which is loosely defined as being roughnecks or thugs, and as a result of that, we see that they're searching for themselves through their expression of music and through the art form of hip-hop and rap.
Kids today, the reason they're falling into this whole gangster image is because they don't recognize who they are and where they've come from, and they've bought a lie. And somehow we have to be able to address the lie, remove the deception, and lift up a different vision, a different portrait of what young black men and young black women can act.
So we have seen how the black man was at the pinnacle of society and how he fell so far. But how does he return to glory? Could it be that slavery served to humble the black man and prepare him for a return to his glorious state?
From beyond the rivers of Ethiopia, my worshipers will bring an offering to me.
Let's take the Negro spiritual, for example. The Negro spiritual was born from stories from the Bible. Consequently, go down Moses, way down in Egypt land. Our ancestors, our progenitors and their patriarchs during slavery certainly identified with the people of the Bible. So that's certainly one way. The other way is something mentioned by Dr. Cobbs and Greer. He calls it the Jesus bag. And according to him, the Bible and the Christian faith were a way that African Americans survived slavery in this country, that it were it not for the Christian teachings in the Bible and our faith in Christ, that we as a people would not even survive this peculiar institution called slavery.
Yes, you could hear them singing as they worked tirelessly in the fields, under the back-breaking burden of labor. You could hear their joyful voices ringing through the air. Neither oppression, nor hunger, nor the master's whip could stop the slaves from praising and worshiping their God. Black brothers, we are to be a gift to the Lord. In a special way, you are uniquely positioned to be used by God.
At that time that he cuts off the twigs of the tree, representing a discipline of us as a people, he would bring to himself a gift of a people from that people. So in the last days, God is bringing us as a gift to the world, to himself. And the name he uses is Lord of Hosts. Why would he bring a gift to himself of the Lord of, as the Lord of Hosts? Because the Lord of Hosts is his fighting name. That's when he wants to battle. If you look at the wars in this nation and around the world, we have always won battles. So God said, I'm going to use this gift to help me win the last battle against the enemy.
What does all this mean? God is saying to you, black man, return to me. I love you. I humbled you in order to use you. Because of my care for you, my plan from the beginning included your return to glory. Once we return to God, he can now use us to change the world, but in a different way than in previous generations.
The one true identity that I think we really need to find is our roots in terms of our rich African heritage. That still has been, for the most part, denied. We have not gone back to really find out who we are and how we contributed greatly to this society.
To understand a history that is not a history based in slavery, but a history based in royalty, based in some of the first architectural systems, some of the first engineering systems, some of the first governmental systems. If we understand that, that helps us then to flow in our purpose for today, because we recognize where we've come from.
If you don't know who you are, then you can't relate to others. If you can't relate to others, then you don't feel good about yourself.
I set out in a pretty impossible task. I decided to put together the entire history of African Americans as much as I could, the whole puzzle, piece by piece, in a visual and comprehensive way, like a timeline. But in this age of computers and, again, videos, it had to be visual. It had to be on display. Frederick Douglass, the great abolitionist, began to recruit free persons of color in the North for the first African-American regiment in the North, the legendary 54th Massachusetts, which was featured in the major motion picture Glory. The first African-American congressman was elected from Louisiana in 1868. It was John Willis Menard. George Washington Carver, agriculturalist, scientist. He found many uses for peanuts, peanut plants, peanut oil, and he really helped revitalize the Southern economy. The first person to reach the North Pole, to actually reach the North Pole, was not Admiral Peary. It was on his expedition. It was a black man, polar explorer Matthew Henson. The first successful graduate of West Point was Charles Young. He became a colonel. He would have become the first black general, but he contracted nephritis in Liberia and eventually died of that. The greatest ambassador this country ever had, I'm not talking politically, was Duke Ellington, Edward Kennedy Duke Ellington, a great orchestra leader, composer, who led a band from the 1920s through the 1970s. In 1963, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., this leader of the Civil Rights Movement, he really was so much responsible for civil rights in the South and immigration schools. One of today's great black heroes is Colin Powell, hero of Desert Storm, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. You can be anything you want to be if you have the knowledge. If you can gain that knowledge, in this country, you've got all sorts of opportunity. And I think going back in your past, Alex Haley said it best. You don't know where you're going. You can't know where you're going if you don't know where you've been.
To understand a history that is not a history based in slavery, but a history based in royalty.
Human civilization started in Africa.
Some of the first architectural systems, some of the first engineering systems, some of the first governmental systems.
After visiting Egypt, white scholar Count Constantine de Volney wrote, "Just think, the race of black men today, our slave and object of our scorn, is the very race to which we owe our arts, sciences, and even the use of speech."
In order to justify the economic drive of the slave trade, there had to be the denigration of black people. And so people began to see these sculptures of people with clear Afroid features. It was just incontrovertible. The facts, the reality that black people had designed this civilization.
Those other channels might give you idols to worship.
Everybody always wants to know, what did my ancestors do? What did my ancestors contribute? Because in a way that's saying, I am an important person by heritage. But when that heritage isn't known, then obviously a huge portion of your self-image goes down the drain. And that's why it's so important, I believe, to take that young 6-year-old boy by the hand and walk down the street and give him a black history lesson and point to his shoes and say it was Jan Montsliger, a black man who invented the automatic shoe lasting machine. And he steps on that clean street and you tell him it was Charles Brooks, a black man who invented the street sweeper, those machines with the big brushes. And down that street comes one of those big refrigerated tractor trailer trucks and you tell him it was Frederick Jones, a black man who invented the refrigeration system for trucks later adopted for airplanes, boats, and trains. And it comes to a stop at the red light and you tell him it was Garrett Morgan, a black man who invented the traffic signal. And you can tell how he also invented the gas mask that saved lots of lives during the war. And while you're talking about the war, Henrietta Bradbury, a black woman who invented the underwater cannon, made it possible to launch torpedoes from submarines. And while you're talking about black women, you can talk about Madam C.J. Walker, a black woman who invented cosmetic products for women of dark complexion, was the first woman of any nationality in the United States to become a millionaire on her own efforts. And you walk past the hospital, you can talk about Charles Drew and his contributions to blood banking, the understanding of blood plasma. Daniel Hale Williams, the first successful open heart surgery in the world, had an operative mortality rate of only 1.5%. You can talk about Lewis Latimer, who was the right-hand man of Thomas Edison, a black man, who came up with the filament that made the light bulb work for more than 2 or 3 days, who invented the electric lamp, who did pioneering work in incandescent and fluorescent lighting, who diagrammed the telephone for Alexander Graham Bell. Tremendous inventor in his own right. Almost no one knows of him. You can walk across the railroad tracks and talk about Andrew Beard, the automatic railroad car coupler, which spurred on the Industrial Revolution, or Elijah McCoy, automatic lubrication system for locomotive engines. And he had so many great inventions, people would say, is that a McCoy? Is that the real McCoy? Which is where the term comes from. One of the greatest inventors in the history of man. And people don't know that he was a black man. And, that's how you remedy the situation.
Returning to glory means...
I'm going to stop this for a minute, my royal family, because I must make a few comments. It's amazing to me that a few people that we have seen in this video here have fallen from grace from the royal family. And it's really sad that as well, and I don't have to point out their names, you've seen a few of them, as well as they know our true royal history, they have fallen from grace. And in this series that I'm doing, or this particular video, they're giving us snippets of how we fell from grace. And they know this. That's the thing that's so ironic. That's why I had to stop the video, because, I'm listening to a few people, and they are spectacles right now in the public, or being used for whatever purpose they may be being used, or they brought it upon themselves. And this is where we in the royal family have to watch having another downfall once we regain our throne. I said in a video before that part, not all, of the reason why we are in the position that we are in, and they said it in this video, and I'm watching it for the first time with the royal family because I want to remain authentic, is that we start naming ourselves gods. We were so immensely blessed that we got drunk on ourselves, and that's not good to do. Any empire that falls apart, man, get drunk on themselves. Just to keep that in mind. So anyway, with that said, let's finish this on. We don't have much left.
It's turning to God and recognizing the important role he has for you as a part of his overall plan. In the same way that the fall had nothing to do with any outside influence, your return to glory does not depend on any outside influence either. It's all about your relationship with the Lord.
I believe that every one of us needs to be comfortable in our own skin. It's not whites trying to be black, blacks trying to be white. It's just saying, God, you made me this way. You made my nose the way it is, my ears, my hair, the color of my eyes, the color of my skin, my lips, the angle of my face, my body structure. The things I can change, I want to have a lifelong journey and a lifelong process of changing those things with your help. But the things I cannot change, I want to thank you as a creature to the Creator. I want to thank you for the way you've designed me. And that, I believe, is the essence of the message of return to glory.
If you see yourself as nothing, you're not going to have very much self-esteem. You're probably not going to move very far in life. If you see yourself as the great one, you're going to get the big head and you're going to fall. If you see yourself as an instrument in God's hands, you recognize that it's about him and it's not about you. And when you recognize that, that's when he can use you. And believe me, he can do a lot more with you than you can do with yourself.
If we understand that we are empowered by God to take control of our own situation and begin to move positively with what our capabilities are and to begin to improve on those capabilities,
that we are, in fact, able to move forward with our circumstances.
I will major on this. The focus has to always be forward and using our past experience, good, bad, or ugly, to build that forward momentum and move in what God has ordained, and God will show himself strong.
And Dr. Adrian Rogers once mentioned how a friend of his in Romania said that Americans have a problem with surrender. We'd rather commit. Well, commit still means that we exercise control. Surrender, however, means we give our total being to God, that we surrender everything to him. And it's really essential that we surrender our everything within us. The song "I Surrender All" is really aptly describes where we are as a black man. As a black man, I want to surrender all to God because I'll find myself in him, by him becoming me, and transforming me into being this great African-American man, but a man who looks beyond color, a man who looks beyond class, a man who looks directly into the eyes of God. And once I find reconciliation in God, I can then find reconciliation with myself, which gives me reconciliation with humanity.
It's not out of envy or hatred of any race that we seek at times to proclaim the great achievements of our own. We do this because we know that no race has a monopoly of intelligence or enterprise or genius, because we know that the race of man is far from finished. There's a great deal left to be done in this world. The race of man is only just beginning. There's room for all of us at the rendezvous of history.
Return to glory has everything to do with humility before Almighty God. If we humble ourselves, he raises us up regardless of race or culture. God said through his prophets Isaiah and Zephaniah, I will raise you up as worshipers unto myself.
Okay, my royal family. I didn't agree with every single thing, but in order to get to the truth, we have to hear things that make us uncomfortable. And there were some things I didn't like, but I'm not going to say all what I did and did not like. I like this overall, and I struggle with some parts of it, but anyway, this is dedicated to the kings. This gives snippets. This is not the all total, and it also show what I did like was the cover up. I will mention that. And like I said, I'm kind of wobbly on this one, but I'm gonna stay authentic. I'm gonna remain authentic, and I'm just gonna leave it as is. And I like to get some feedback on here, and if anything y'all want me to share in the King series, I will. Now, the videos that I did before, because I don't know if I'll get my old videos back, I'm gonna do all those videos back over. I've said this before, but I'm going slow for a reason. And I'll tell you why I'm going slow. I really want people to take the time to absorb what they're watching, because if you put these videos back to back, we have a tendency, and we're human, to get lackadaisical or get so comfortable that we'll just know, oh, okay, True Royal Family, that channel, they're going to always have this and they're going to always have that. You don't know what I may come with. So I have to kind of keep y'all on the edge of your seat. And I'm going to always talk about what's going on currently, and then whatever inspires me, because y'all know that I pray and I listen to the universe, and the things that God put on my heart and many of our hearts, because I can't wait to listen to y'all too as well, because it inspires me greatly and keeps me lifted and held up too as well. I put out on these videos, and I appreciate everyone immensely. I appreciate the videos that I watch. I really do. I need them. I just wanted to let the kings know I love you, and the queens know that I love y'all too as well. And don't think, my queens, that I won't be talking about the queens as well. I will. I'm going to do more of that. So with that said, my royal family, Ashe.